Right, so in this podcast we're talking about half reactions. And because oxidation and reduction always happen together, one of our reactions is an oxidation and one of them is a reduction. And together they make the entire reaction. So each one is called a half reaction. So the first thing we have to do is determine who's being oxidized and who's being reduced. So if we kind of look at oxidation numbers, which we learned in the last podcast, iron in this case is a +3 because it is its charge. Over here it is a +2. So we know that iron is being reduced because it's getting smaller. Magnesium, it's an element by itself, so it's a 0, and now it's a +2. So magnesium is our thing that's being oxidized. So what's going to happen is we're really going to take these two equations and separate them. So the way this looks is like this. We're going to just do Fe +3 goes to Fe +2. We're going to write another reaction, so that's half of it. Here's the other half. Magnesium element goes to magnesium ion. And notice both these things are on the right side, they're both products, and both of these are on the left side because they're reactants. Okay? So you simply just isolate the elements that are involved in each of the half reactions. The next thing we're going to look at is balancing, okay, just like we did first semester. So we have one Fe, we have one Fe, so it looks like it's balanced. However, we have charges, and now we have to balance our charges. So we have a +3, and we have a +2. So the only thing we can add is electrons now, and electrons have a negative charge. So we want our charge to be the same on both sides. So if I add an electron to the product side, if we have +1, -1, because electrons are always -1, that would be 1. So does 1 equal 3? It does not. So really my electron belongs right here. So we have a negative charge +3 equals +2, and that equals +2. Down here we have one magnesium, we have one magnesium. However, we have a 0 charge and a +2 charge. So down here I'm going to add 2 electrons. And now notice my two half reactions are balanced because they have the same number of electrons and the same charge. So if we go back up here and look at iron, it says iron is reduced. Well, if you remember that Leo says Ger, reduced means it's gaining electrons. So iron right here, notice we have an iron, we're adding electrons to it. Oh, it's gaining electrons. Similarly, we identified magnesium as being oxidized. So in oxidation, we lose electrons. So magnesium starts with a certain number of electrons, it reacts, and it has lost 2 electrons. Okay? So if electrons are on the right side, they're lost. If they're on the left side, they are gained. So that's where losing and gaining electrons comes in. So we're going to do our next one. So when we separate aluminum out, we have aluminum ion goes to aluminum metal, and we have zinc metal goes to zinc ion. And in this equation, notice we have a +3 charge and a 0 charge. So we're going to add 3 electrons to the reactant side. And down here, we're going to end up adding 2 electrons to the product side. Alright? And that is a 2, not a Z. I'll put little dashes here for my Z's. Okay? So again, it'll be easy to identify who's reduced, who's oxidized. Our last one is kind of interesting because not everything has charges. So what happens on this one, you'll have some of these in your homework. We're going to do a calcium yield. I'm just going to break this ionic compound up. So calcium goes to calcium ion, and oxygen element goes to oxide. So again, this ionic compound is really made up of a calcium with a +2 charge and an oxygen with a -2 charge. So all I'm doing is I'm separating that out. So we have calcium on our first reaction, and calcium ion. So a +2 charge on the right, which means I need to add 2 electrons there. And then my oxygen, I need to add 2 electrons to the left-hand side. Alright? So again, up here with aluminum, we're adding electrons, so it's gaining electrons. So gaining means aluminum is being reduced. If we look at its charge, it's going from a +3 to a 0. And if it's being reduced, zinc must be being oxidized. Down here, calcium is losing electrons, so it is being oxidized, which by default means oxygen must be being reduced. Alright, so that is half reactions.